podcast. With Low Jackson, rewire the mind. Yeah, the thoughts keep flashing. 60,000 strong, we just keep on growing. Emotional intelligence, a vibe keep flowing. You only podcast, one mind, one show. Awareness in your soul, let the knowledge just grow.
This is the You Only Podcast. I'm Low Jackson. It's a beautiful sunny summer day out. Thank you for tuning back in today. We are going to be diving into a wonderful read. Hopefully you'll go out there and find this one. It's a great one. It is Surviving Survival, The Art and Science of Resilience by Dr. Laurence Gonzales.
Top 5 signs you are in survival mode. Number 5, you're constantly irritated. You don't want to be snappy, but everything sets you off. You tell yourself to breathe, to stay patient, but even minor things feel loud, urgent, and unbearable. This isn't about being rude, it's your body screaming that it's had enough. Instead, try this. Name the feeling out loud. I'm feeling agitated. Labeling emotions reduces activity in the amygdala and helps you regulate your emotions. Number 4, you're overwhelmed by almost everything. Getting out of bed feels like a task. You open a message and feel pressure. You think about your to-do list and your chest tightens. It's not that you're avoiding life, it's that your mind and body are trying to protect you from burning out even more. So instead, try this. Pick one micro task and do it slowly. When you're in survival mode, small wins signal safety to your nervous system. Number 3, you don't feel like you anymore. You try to show up, you go through the motions, but you feel disconnected. It's like you're watching your life from behind glass. You laugh at the right moments, you respond to texts, but it's all empty. You're checked out because checking in would take energy you don't have. So instead, try this. Gently reconnect with your 5 senses: touch, smell, sound, sight, and taste. It grounds you in the present moment. Number 2, you can't remember the last time something felt meaningful. There's no spark, no passion, no why. You're not looking forward to anything, you're just surviving each day. Even things you used to enjoy feel distant. You're not lazy, you're detached, because connection feels like a luxury when you're barely holding on. So instead, try this. Ask yourself, what used to matter to me? And then spend 5 minutes in that memory. That reflection can gently restore direction in your life. Number 1, you're exhausted on a level that rest doesn't touch. Sleep doesn't help. Breaks don't help. It's a kind of tired that lives in your bones. You wake up tired, you go to bed tired, and all day long you're just trying to make it through the next moment without falling apart. So instead, try this. Add novelty. Do one thing differently. Novelty signals to your brain that life isn't always dull.
The Deep Survival. This is one of the books that explores the aftermath and how to survive and cope with trauma and rebuilding your mental stability. And I find that all 4 of the great figures in psychology are represented in this book by this author. He represents William James, which is the founding father of psychology in America, because James was a functionalist, or he believed in functionalism, stream of consciousness, and like emotional behavior, pretty much. James argued that the mind and emotions evolved for survival. Conscious helps us adapt to the environment. And we all kind of feel that. It's not so much that we understand these theories because we're not breaking them down so we understand them word for word. These things sometimes just happen as people, and we don't even realize we are doing these things. And Deep Survival, a book that Gonzales wrote, echoes this idea. Survival depends less on brute skill and more on consciousness, awareness, decision making, emotional regulation, and it operates under stress. And we're not even aware of it just because our brains are trying to calm us constantly and we're stressed out and we don't even know it.
Reticular activating system. Whatever you want to change in your life, anything you want to change in your life, jam it down into that part of the brain. And the way to jam it down into that part of the brain is, how can I communicate this to a dog?
It requires imagery, emotion, smell, and then repetition. just training a dog.
There's a formula that I used to teach for actual brainwashing, and it works the same to brainwash ourselves out of a behavior or into a new behavior. It's focus, emotion, agitation, and repetition. So agitation meaning I'm going to change my environment very regularly so my brain doesn't go into I'm familiar with this mode. So it's like, wow, these walls are a different color in my office. My couch in my living room's in a different place. I can continuously move things around to force my lower brain to say, things are new, you need to pay attention.
James's theory of emotion, we feel afraid because we run. It's actually the James Lang theory, and I talked about that in a previous episode when I did William James. We feel afraid because we run. Shows that bodily reactions drive emotions. In survival stories, Gonzales highlights this when someone starts breathing fast, heart racing, their body primes their mind for fight or flight. The survivors are often the ones who recognize these signals and channel them into useful action instead of panic. Sigmund Freud, he was tied into this book too because Freud focused on the unconscious mind and how hidden drives and fears influence behavior. In survival psychology, unconscious instincts, fear of death, clinging to life, suppressed trauma often emerge. Gonzales shows that people sometimes sabotage themselves by falling into denial, a defense mechanism Freud described, or by ignoring dangerous signs. Survivors tend to acknowledge reality instead of representing it. For example, admitting I'm lost early on gives someone a chance to take rational action instead of drifting into unconscious denial and staying lost. Freud's idea of the death drive versus life instinct, he called it in that Thanktos versus Thanktos versus life instinct, or eros, also resonates. Some survivors describe moments when they nearly gave up death instinct, but then shifted to a renewed will to live, life instinct. And that right there is a sign of Viktor Frankl, another episode that I did, A Man's Search for Meaning. That was the way Freud tied into this book.
Psychological truth that you must know. Sigmund Freud said this. The more perfect a person is on the outside, the more demons they have on the inside. Beware of people who seem too virtuous, who seem too good. They might be hiding something. And on the flip side, just remember somebody who's rough around the edges. Someone who's always not the absolute nicest. They might be your most loyal friend in time of need.
Jung did archetypes, collective unconsciousness, and shadow, and Jung believed in deep archetypes and symbols rooted in the collective unconscious. Survival stories often describe people tapping into something bigger than themselves, ancestral instincts, visions, and even spiritual archetypes. And all of us have had these things go on in life. One time I had a dream 3 days out of the week, and at the end of the week, the dream played out. Just like I had had the nightmare every day up until that point. And it was the only time that I ever seen the future. But it was something very, very traumatic, and I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to relive those moments. What a nightmare. Yeah, your 20s are rough, But young Shadow, the hidden primal part of ourselves emerges in survival, fear, aggression, and raw instincts that surface. And integrating this shadow energy can fuel survival. And that has to do with this book. Jung also emphasized individualization, aligning the conscious and unconscious. Survivors who succeed often accept their fear and use it instead of splitting off from it. And Alfred Adler, he believed in the inferiority complex, and that was one of his theories that he invented. And we still know that inferiority complex is real to this day, and it's a true thing. Striving, social connection, and purpose was Alfred Adler's things too. And Adler argued that people are driven by a sense of striving for superiority, overcoming feelings of inferiority and weakness. And that's everybody's purpose here in life, is to become the best individual you can be and become stronger and empowered. So in survival, Gonzales highlights how people who frame their ordeal as a challenge to rise above often endure longer pain. Those who fall into helplessness, inferiority, often give up. Adler also emphasized social interest and connection. Survivors often report they made it because they wanted to return to family, children, or community. That pulls us towards others, gave them resilience, and that's a lot what this book has to do with is resilience. And I wanted to do this book today because one of my greatest powers that I've ever possessed is resilience. Because I have been through a really rough life, a really tough life, and I've come out on the brighter side of any animosities that's ever stood up against my purpose in this lifetime. And I know that each and every one of you have these tools inside of you. So hopefully maybe today you'll learn to cultivate some of those and incorporate some of this knowledge that I'm giving you guys into your own personal lives, your kids' lives, your parents' lives, whatever. But thank you for listening to the You Only podcast. And hopefully you're enjoying this wonderful read today.
To be an empath without discernment is to become a playground for disowned archetypes. But to be an empath who names what they carry, that is the path of the alchemist. You may think it is enough to say, I feel what others feel, but you must go deeper. Why do you feel it? Where does it enter you? And what are you doing with it? Because empathy can be a subtle possession. The unconscious is a trickster. It does not always arrive with horns and flame. Sometimes it comes as compassion so overwhelming that it drowns. Sometimes it comes as a need to help, so compulsive that it destroys your own boundaries. Sometimes it comes as love for a person whose shadow has latched onto your soul and mistaken your body for its graveyard. I have seen empaths fall in love with the very people who are destroying them, not out of weakness, but because they have been unconsciously seduced by the other's wounds. They feel the ache, and in feeling it they become the caretaker, the savior, the silent sponge. The healer becomes the heart. The bearer of light becomes the host of another shadow. And the longer this unconscious dynamic persists, the more the empath begins to lose the thread of who they truly are.
Chapter 1, The Shock of Survival. Gonzales opens with the stories of survival. Plane crash victims, cancer patients, soldiers. They lived through the moment everyone else didn't, but afterward, they carry invisible wounds. PTSD affects about 7 to 8% of Americans at some point in their lives. National Institute of Mental Health reports. Among war veterans, it is as high as 30%. Survival doesn't end when the event ends. It rewires the nervous system. And I suffer from severe PTSD, and I have since I was 6 years old when my dad died. And that year, so many traumatic events happened all in one year that it left me building walls for 20 years. And to finally have to tear them down in my late 30s and see myself for what I was and the decisions that I made. And, it makes you feel a certain way when you look back and you were just surviving that whole time and you had severe PTSD, so you didn't know what to do and you were afraid of everything. And a lot of things went on for me that were out of my control because I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know that I was in control of my life and that, there was my parents weren't there to live my life. I didn't know that I was in total control. But PTSD affects 7 to 8% of Americans at some point in their lives. And I think that if people became more aware of the symptoms of PTSD, they would understand people a little bit more. And compare this with The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. And that was one of my past episodes. Greene explains how trauma and fear alter perception permanently. And it's true. I've felt it. I've seen it. I know. So, and Gonzales takes this into the realm of neurology. Survival rewrites the brain's circuitry. It has to. It's just like I had told you in several other episodes. When you walk into like a store and the person behind the counter, obviously they're in the service industry, but they make you feel a certain way. You smile, you walk away with a little feeling of contentness in your heart. Your whole entire paradigm just changed. Your neurochemical transmission changed your thought process, and it makes you live better when you feel that way. So surviving is not the end of danger. It's the beginning of living it and inside it. Surviving is not the end of danger, it's the beginning of living inside of it. In chapter 2, the brain's loops of fear. Neuroscience shows that after trauma, the amygdala fires constantly, looping fear even when danger is gone. Survivors relive the event because the brain can't tell past from present.
If you are an empath, you must understand your gift is not simply emotional, it is psychic, and it is archetypal. You are attuned not just to feelings, but to the collective currents that shape humanity itself.
In an MRI study, PTSD patients show overactivation in the amygdala and reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex. Real life account here. A woman who survived a mountain lion attack couldn't sleep near windows for years because her brain replayed the attack every single night. In my episode on emotional intelligence, Daniel Goleman explains how the amygdala is hijacked, shuts down rational thought. Gonzales shows what happens when the hijack never stops. The event ended in seconds. The brain decided it never ended. And people live like that for years. And it causes the brain to develop even worse psychosomatic injuries and neural pathways that are almost unfixable. In chapter 3, memory as a weapon, survival memories are etched deeper than ordinary memories because adrenaline cements them. That's why you can't just forget. Traumatic memories trigger 2 times more activation in the hippocampus than neutral memories. They are literally harder to erase. So, in real life, Holocaust survivors describe how a single smell decades later brings them back to Auschwitz. And you can see that in the book by Viktor Frankl, A Man's Search for Meaning. And that's tied into, or you can compare it with Propaganda by Edward Bernays. And that was a past episode I had done, just like propaganda hijacks memory to steer behavior. Trauma hijacks memory to keep the body ready so that you're always on guard. But if you're always on guard for years, think about how stressful that would be to never be at peace inside of yourself. I would think that it would cause your body to pretty much die sooner than what it was ever expected to. So the brain doesn't care that you survived. It only cares that you must never, ever forget. Chapter 4, the body remembers. And the body remembers, I did an episode by Bessel van der Kolk. What a great writer. The Body Keeps the Score. Go back and check that one out. Such a wonderful book. Bessel van der Kolk, he is a wonderful scientist, psychologist, everything. Gonzales describes how trauma embeds itself in the body. Insomnia, autoimmune flare ups, chronic stress. Survivors don't just remember trauma, they embody it. And I've talked about that in other episodes. Traumas are stored in organs and body parts. Trauma survivors are 3 times more likely to develop illness later in life, says a CDC report and study. In the 5 love languages, one of my hit episodes, emotional wounds shape how we connect in relationships. Gonzales shows how survival wounds even shape our immune system and heartbeat. Have you ever been with someone that you loved, your intimate partner, and like when they were asleep, put your hand on their heart and then put your hand on your heart? If you're with somebody long enough, you'll feel your heart's beating at the same beat, at the same time. And once you sleep with somebody long enough, you literally will take on your breathing patterns as you sleep. So in the book Survival, survival is stored in the muscles, the scars, the breath. And that's why I always reiterate about the breath. It's the first thing you do when you're incepted in this life. You take a breath, you breathe air. Chapter 5, the stories we tell. Survivors who heal often do so by reframing their story, meaning making is medicine. People who journal about trauma show fewer doctor visits and improve immune function. And that was James Penn Baker's study, is where I had found that. I thought that was really interesting. That, journaling, I have journaled for so many years, and I know my buddy told me, he's like, man, I don't know how you have time to journal. And I'm like, it's important to write your life down so you can go back and see your progress. It just made sense to me, and that's just something I've always done. So if I get into something, I journal about it. Like I told you in another episode, I have an invention journal next to my bed. If I wake up and I thought of something, I draw it out, I write it down as soon as I wake up, and it's really actually helped my mind develop and be more creative in certain areas. That's helped me with my jobs and things. So in chapter 5, the stories we tell, survivors who heal often do so by reframing their stories. So, like I had just told you, I think when we reframe our stories, it gives us a chance to kind of embellish our lives.
Just a couple of the things that you need to be on the lookout for. Lip compression is when someone squeezes their lips together. You'll see like that. Usually means, almost all the time, withheld opinions. So like if we're talking and you're like, Chase, how do you like the new thing that you just bought? And I'm like, oh, it's great. It's really important to be able to say, oh, there's something being held back. It doesn't mean you need to dig it out or anything, but it's good as a data point. If I'm in an interrogation, I know I may need to ask more questions about that thing. The other variation of this is lip retraction. And this is when the lip goes past the barrier of the teeth. So when you see the lip go like into the mouth, or you see a finger go into the mouth, it's a need for reassurance most of the time. And you'll see that, like I'll be calling someone up on stage, or I'll do some kind of thing where I'm talking to a person, and you'll see them do some kind of thing where something's going into their mouth. Right away, I know that that person needs some kind of reassurance. And it is so powerful. It could drastically change how you react to people and how you communicate to people. It can make you a much better communicator.
Thank you for listening to the You Only podcast. We're in our 3rd season here, and hopefully you're enjoying Surviving Survival by Laurence Gonzales. In chapter 6, he writes Healing and Rewiring. Gonzales ends the science of resilience, neuroplasticity. Brains can rewire. Survival does not have to mean permanent captivity.
I want you to think about it this way. Your brain is literally a supercomputer that's going to follow the directions that you program it with. Your brain simply believes whatever you tell it most. What you repeatedly say to yourself matters, right? This isn't science fiction, this is science fact. Neuroplasticity, more specifically, Hebb's law. Neurons that fire together, wire together. So you've heard about this all day, I'm just reaffirming it for you. Your self-talk shapes your brain, which shapes your beliefs, which drives your behavior, which creates your thoughts, your feelings, your experiences, which creates the totality of your reality. So remember, the brain believes whatever you tell it most.
Therapies like EMDR, mindfulness, and exposure therapy literally changed neural pathways, giving survivors freedom. And EMDR is a type of therapy that it's a mind eraser. It gets down to the cause of the trauma. A 2019 meta-analysis shows that 77% of PTSD patients significantly improve with trauma-focused therapy. Extreme ownership in the book Extreme Ownership, another episode I covered, Jocko Willink says leaders must own everything. Gonzales says survivors must reclaim ownership of their story and brain. Survival is not the end. Survival is the beginning of rewiring. And I believe that it's everybody's job to learn how to rewire their brain because it's a computer. The more things that you focus on quietly inside of yourself, your subconscious mind literally takes on 95% of the thought process in the brain. So surviving survival is not about forgetting. It's about transforming. The crash, the war, the illness, they change your brain. At the same time, the brain that locked you inside trauma is the brain that can set you free. Once you see this, you realize survival isn't just about living through the moment. It's about mastering the mind that follows. And it's your job as an adult or a young adult to be the governor over your mind. Do not allow things to interject into your sovereignty of your own human nature, because people will find ways to infiltrate you and to make you think differently so you think more along the lines of what they want you to think. And thank you guys for listening so much. Thank you for all my fan members. I've recently had 25 new followers. We're way over 60,000 listens right now, and it's climbing. And this podcast is growing. So please continue to share me, follow, like. I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Audible, Amazon Prime. I'm on Apple, Google, Good Pods, Goodreads. Check me out. Share me. Follow me. I'm trying to make this thing take off. And these episodes that I'm doing right now are building into an interview episode that is coming. I promise you that. I'm not kidding. I'm not dropping the ball this time. I have a psychologist that's willing to sit down with me next month. I have someone who wants to tell their story about domestic violence, and I have a university certificate in domestic violence, so I am totally down with that one. And I really do want to do that one. So thank you guys for listening. To all my fan members, I love you so much. I appreciate you, and continue listening and sharing. Till next time.
You only podcast with Low Jackson, rewire the mind. Yeah, the thoughts keep flashing. 60,000 strong, we just keep on growing. Emotional intelligence, a vibe keep flowing. You only podcast, one mind, one show. Awareness in your soul, let the knowledge just grow. You only podcast with Low Jackson, rewire the mind. Yeah, the thoughts keep flashing. 60,000 strong, we just keep on growing. Emotional intelligence, a vibe keep flowing. You only podcast, one mind, one show. Awareness in your soul, the knowledge just grow. Low Jackson, wide the mind. Yeah, the thoughts keep flashing. 60,000 strong. Take all up, click the pressure on the floor. The knowledge is growing. Cash, cash, versus boy, the clock keep flowing. Emotional escape, go rock the love. It does get out, just 60,000 strong.